What's going on, gang? Welcome to episode 19 of the Becoming Limitless Podcast. I'm absolutely hyped to be joined by my special guest today, Jake Runnels. Jake is a 25-year-old travel YouTuber. He's been traveling through Colombia, Europe, and South America for a few years now. And the reason I actually even know who Jake is because I came to Colombia last year in August for the first time, and before I left for Colombia, I was doing a ton of research on Colombia and digital nomad life in Medellin. Was going on YouTube, just checking out videos, and I saw Jake's page on there, and I just started watching some videos, really appreciate him giving some insight about what life was like in Medellin, in Colombia in the first place, just so I had a better idea and could prepare myself a little bit. And then, so I was in Colombia for a few months last year, came back this year in January here for 5 more months, and moved to the neighborhood El Poblado, which is a very popular neighborhood here in Medellin. And I was just walking to the gym yesterday, and I was walking past Jake. Well, he was walking in my direction. I was like, that dude looks so fucking familiar. I paused and I was like, wait, bro, you're Jake, right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude. I've seen a ton of your clips on YouTube and your videos, and I just really appreciate them, bro. And we were talking for a while, sat down, got some juice, and just had a really good convo. Asked if he could come on the pod. Grateful for him to be here. And yeah, bro, so thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, man, thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to be on your pod. That's a great intro. Thank you, man. And yeah, I could tell you were starting to notice me because I saw you slowly looking and started slowly taking out your mic, and I was like, all right, here we go.
Here we go.
But yeah, it was cool. Yeah, man, but happy to be here.
Fuck yeah, brother. Wait, just real quick before I kind of dive into it. So how much does that happen where people are recognizing you, stopping you?
Yeah.
I don't want to be a fanboy thing, but I want to say, fuck it, bro. Shoot your videos.
Yeah, no, it's happened a lot more frequently since being back in Medellin, since I've been here this time. It's before I was making videos in Pereira, which is a smaller town, and so there were really not that many gringos there, but all the ones that were there, they all recognized me and knew me. Mm-hmm. So it was relatively infrequent that one would come through. But here in Medellin, I guess Medellin is obviously way more popular of a city. It's happened more frequently, and so it's been cool.
It's been cool. It hasn't been there hasn't been any problems with some people.
No, nothing and it hasn't been over the top or anything. But it's mostly just people that say, "Hey, you're Jake, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But I never, like I said, I never know how much they, how much videos they've watched or whatever.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot that I've shared, so I'm always okay, this person knows me, and I've just as far as I know, an NPC off the street. I have no idea. But for the most part, yeah, it's been super cool.
Yeah, fuck yeah, bro. All right, lucky here, man. I'm glad it's been cool. Yeah. But yeah, brother, if you could just take me through, bro. So the whole reason I wanted to have you on the podcast too is I knew that you love to travel, man, as do I. And this pod really is aimed at helping people improve the quality of their lives, help people live more fulfilled lives, and I genuinely believe, in my experience, travel has helped me a ton in my life, just to improve the quality of my life, help me live more fulfilled, more satisfied, keeps me excited every single day, things to look forward to. And I just think it's such an important aspect that if people haven't traveled, they're missing out on. Yeah. And brother, I would love to hear if you could take me through your journey a little bit as to why you decided, when you started traveling, why you decided to start. And you're a young guy, you said you're 25, right? And so you started a couple years ago when you moved to Colombia and South America. Mm-hmm. It's a young age, and for you to take that leap takes a lot of courage. And yeah, I would just love to hear your thoughts and how you have come down this journey.
Yeah, I grew up in a really small town in Florida, just basically a retirement community town. People just go there to die.
Okay,
much.
Where is it in Florida?
Ocala. So it's pretty much not a lot going on there, not a lot to do. Until I was probably 18, I had only been outside of the States a couple times in my life. So I think I had growing up, when I was a kid, not so much when I was adolescence or whatever, but when I was a kid, my parents were pretty strict. Going over to someone's house and sleeping over or whatever, it was definitely they were very strict on that sort of thing. And so I think I developed a yearning for wanting to go out there and have adventure by the time I reached adulthood. And by the time I turned 18, went off to college, and I remember just sitting in college feeling, oh my God, I was studying psychology at the time, which is what everyone studies when they don't know what they pretty much. And I was just like, I remember sitting down one day and like thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this for 7 years of studying. That means that's gonna be time here, and then you're gonna get a bunch of debt, and then you're not gonna make that much, and you're gonna spend your whole life paying it off. And so I just sat down one day and realized like that's not what I wanted to do. And so after I sat down and had that, that conversation with myself, I when I was in class, I couldn't focus. I was like, I just was thinking of there's got to be a way to just, not have to be here.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, every day in class, I was like plotting a way to try to figure out like how to get out. Like same thing with while I was at work, I was working as a server at a restaurant, and I was just trying to figure out like how can I get out? How can I travel? And I started dipping my toes into e-commerce. And I made a little bit of money, and like my first week, I think I was able to get $200 in sales or whatever, which is not profit, it's just revenue. But at the time, I didn't know anything. I was like, for money, wow.
Yeah, okay.
I immediately quit my job, dropped out of school. In hindsight, it maybe was a bit like too quick, but it was just like I was so excited about it that I was like, just fuck it.
Yeah.
And which is really cool, just have those kind of pillars of time, school and work just open up, and you have to just make it on your own. And then once I started seeing money was like relatively consistent, or at the point where I could sustain myself, I remember one day I went camping I just took my car, I wanted to go camping up in the Appalachians. And I remember waking up in the morning and I was looking at my phone and I was like, and I had sales coming in. And I remember thinking, I can do this anyway. It was like an epiphany. And shortly after that, I booked a flight to Paris to go to Europe for the first time. And
you went by yourself?
Went by myself.
Nice.
My hobby, my sport at the time was jiu-jitsu. And so I basically planned this trip where I hit up like all these jiu-jitsu academies all over Europe, and they would offer me a place to stay. They'd give me a free place to train.
No shit.
And so I was like traveling around Europe, training jiu-jitsu and sleeping on these people's couches. And it was a very eye-opening experience, and I just knew I wanted to do more of that. So ever since then, it's just been continuing on that. I found a bit of a groove in South America that I really like, so I've been spending more time here.
Right on, brother. Dude, so how old were you when you went to Paris and booked that flight?
I was like 18, 19, something like that.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It takes us like a lot of balls, man, a lot of courage too, especially because so many people when they travel, I know backpackers, they're going like to party and they're going to hostels and people go nuts when they're abroad like it's a vacation. But you decided to look up these jiu-jitsu schools, which is so fucking cool. And then by meeting people in that community, they gave you a place to stay, and I'm sure you felt like you had a much like deeper connection with that place and the people there.
Yeah.
So what was it from being in France to coming to South America? So what was it? What was that attraction for you here?
Yeah, so I had a friend from Panama who was living in the United States. I met him through jiu-jitsu, and he's also like a traveler, backpacker type of guy, and he said he was planning a trip to Colombia. And it was, I just told him, I was like, I want to go with you. And I went with him. We first got to Medellin, and we did the whole like Gringo Trail, like Cartagena, Medellin, Tayrona, like the whole thing. And I remember just how much I loved Medellin when I was there. And after a couple weeks of traveling, he went back home, and I was like, I'm going to go back to Medellin. So I just came back and spent 3 months and did the whole thing. A lot of us do is start learning Spanish, start maybe picking up some dancing, stuff like that. So and I've just been in love with it since then. I've found other little pockets in Colombia that I really like that are good alternatives, and
Right on, brother. Have you lived in the States for like a consecutive amount of time, like a good amount of time since you hit that first time traveling?
Yeah, so that first time going to Europe, I came back, lived in the States for a little bit, and then I went to Colombia really shortly after that. And then when I came back to Colombia, I bought a van and I did the van life thing for a little bit.
Okay.
So I did the van, and that's right when the pandemic hit. So right when the pandemic hit, I did the van life thing, saw the United States. Trump was president, there were protests everywhere, COVID lockdowns, it was hectic and a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I loved the chaos of the country at that time.
Sure.
But yeah, pretty much since then, I've spent like a couple months here and there, but for the most part, it's really been a lot of Latin America since then. And then I spent a little bit of time in Europe and Poland and Ukraine for a little bit.
Right on. Yeah. Okay. So what do you think is like some of the biggest differences like from Latin America, Colombia specifically, and the U.S. and what kind of keeps you here? What is that thing that like makes you want to stay? And like you've been here for a couple of years, like in and out a little bit for a couple of years. You said yesterday. It's like, what is it, that thing that's like keeping you staying here?
The women. I'm just kidding.
Hey, bro, there's a lot of people here for the women.
A lot of people here, yeah. I would say no. I would say there's the things that everyone says, which is that it's cheap, the weather's great, and people are nice, and the girls are super attractive and feminine and all that stuff. So all that definitely, I think definitely plays a factor. I'm not one of those people. I think there's a lot of people that will go to a new place, and I've done this, where they will look down on the place they were before, like the United States. Oh, United States, it's just, I hate it. A lot of kind of negativity. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think in the United States you got a lot of security and there's a lot of like stability there that I think is definitely very valuable for having a society that you lack a little bit in Colombia at sometimes. But I would just say, as far as the biggest things like really draw me here is, yeah, it's just every day feels like an adventure here. The people here live very spontaneously, and there's a lot of beautiful nature and all sorts of like adventures and things you can get yourself into for really low barrier to entry. Yeah. Everywhere you go. So it's like constantly traveling is definitely wears on you after a while. So it's nice to be in a place where you can get that feeling of every day being new and spontaneous. Yeah. While being in the same place. And I think that Colombia and a lot of Latin America offers that, to a really good extent.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. I did the backpacking in South America for 5 months. Yeah. Incredible experience. Like, I don't regret anything, but dude, I was so ready to be done backpacking. And when it was over, like, I thrive, man, like on like routine and discipline and stability, and I love spontaneity. Maybe every weekend, like, I'll do a new trip, or like maybe every other weekend or something like that. But like, I want to be locked in during the week, man. Yeah. It's a totally different ballgame than the backpacking thing. Yeah. And just like meeting some people and they're doing it for a year and it's wow, I don't know how it's possible. You're a different breed than me, but that's all right.
No, it grinds you down. Yes, that backpacking trip that I had was incredible, super eye opening, but it was definitely by the end of it I was just like so exhausted and ready to be done with it, So now, like, I prefer, I think long, like, kind of medium to long term travel is the best. Where you just really sink your teeth in.
100%. I think the experience is like it's so much deeper. It's so much better. Like, you actually meet like friends and locals and have your spots, and I think it's night and day than just going places to check off the list. So I completely agree with that. Yeah. But so we were talking yesterday too when we sat down about like how much traveling. It's not only just about we love this place just because the culture itself, and like we said, the people are amazing, the climate, it's all true. But another thing that we were discussing was like about the type of people that we've developed into and we've become since we started traveling. And so I'm curious, man, whether you want to deep dive into how you were when you first came to Colombia to now 2 years ago, when you first started traveling in general to now, but like how have you genuinely like developed as a person, as a man, since you started traveling in general, and like how has it helped you develop?
Yeah, it's a good question, very broad question. I think a lot of things. There's so many different areas. I think travel really puts like a mirror up against you, where a lot of times you could be alone for very long stretches of time and you'll meet people that can be signposts along the way, or messages you see what other people are doing with their lives and how maybe you want to do this or not do that. I would say that the biggest thing is, I don't know, it just gives you like a sense of, I don't want to say perseverance, but just the sense of like, I've been in like situations that like were difficult or like really wanted to be out of, or you felt maybe stuck, or you really wanted to get to the next place or something like that. And I think it just more than anything has taught me that no matter what happens, I'm going to be good, I'm going to be fine. And there's also like a purpose to it. There's all these, when you travel and you live very openly and you start conversations with people, with strangers, and there's all these little events and things that occur that really make you aware, like they almost seem like synchronicities, like all these little things that happen where it's like, how did I end up there? How did I end up there? And that was exactly what I needed at that time. Yeah. So I think traveling can be like a very like religious thing for me. Like I think it eventually you're not really the one like steering. You just go where it is you feel like you're called to. Yeah. So I would say just that feeling of letting go, but also what big thing is growing up in school, I was definitely like the shy, quiet kid. Wasn't really open up, scared to talk to people. And through travel, I feel very much more extroverted, I would say. Even though I still prefer being introverted, I think I I have much more confidence in going up to random people, meeting girls, and that I think was a big reason for me, just overcoming some of those insecurities and just developing the faith in yourself that whatever position you put yourself in, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, brother. Dude, I couldn't genuinely agree more. And I was telling you yesterday, like, just being here and how you had alluded to earlier, every day is a little bit of an adventure. Every day I leave that door, I don't know what's going to happen, what type of conversation I'm going to have, what's going to be going on in the street. Any of these type of things could just be, I don't know, with the taxi driver, he's talking a million miles an hour. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Oh, yeah. They talk fast, yeah.
They talk fast, but I'm just saying in general, it's like, each day I just have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But so it makes you like, one, I try and be not ready for anything, but just like I'm like alert. Like I almost hype myself up every day. Like I put myself, Tony Robbins calls it like in your state. Like he's like goes get in your state. Like I put myself in my like emotional state in my head to just be ready for the day, be ready for the chaos and the alertness, and it makes me feel more alive every single day to be able to attack the day. Whereas I get home, you can get into these like grooves of complacency and almost like you're on autopilot.
Yeah.
But here, cause it is like, every day is different. There's so much spontaneity. It does feel like it gives me that extra juice and that aliveness.
Yeah.
So I 100% on the same page as that. And as far as in general, like even starting to document your whole process with the YouTube, like what was the idea behind that in the first place? Was it for fun? Was it to start a business? Or like what was the main driver behind you starting to create these videos about life in Medellin and about life traveling in general?
Yeah, I think I've always liked having a bit of a following, and so I think when I was in high school, like I said, I was like a very shy kid, but I had this. I remember when I was like a freshman, I made this I was really into football at the time, so I made this fan page for this football team that I really liked, and it had 5K or something followers or something, which that many years ago was actually a decent following, and I was just a kid, and so I remember that feeling of just, it was like sharing my thoughts and what I think, and people would react to it and share their thoughts and bounce things off of. I would say the biggest thing more than anything, like for me right now, I just enjoy it. I really like the process of making videos. It's fun when you go out there and I'm going to record a video today. And then you have no idea. Sometimes you have a bit of an idea what the story is going to be, but then sometimes just things just unfold and you're just captured and you just tell the story. Mm-hmm. And the act of video editing I enjoy it. Also, just the people that will comment, the people I've met through it has been like a huge ROI, even though it's still in its baby steps kind of phase. I've met some really incredible people that have become my friends. Every single person I've met from it has been pretty cool. So I think it's pretty cool to find a way to, if you could find a way to like express yourself in an authentic way, the people that resonate with you, you're gonna get along with quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a lot of like richness and wealth in hearing other people, kind of respond and reach out and message and stuff like that. And then you get like hate comments and stuff like that, and that to me is usually just pretty funny. Like, I just enjoy it.
Dude, that's an amazing thing, brother. That is an amazing thing, especially in this world, in like the world of content creation. But no, man, I feel like there's something super powerful about creation, just being creative in general and creating something that didn't exist before. It's super fulfilling and satisfying. I think, at least myself, just by creating whatever content and reels for my coaching on Instagram and stuff. And I commend you for sticking with it, and I can see why you do it. It generally is so exciting, and the people you connect with, it's like, it just opens up your world and opens up so many doors, again, to that spontaneity we were asking, like, oh, this person here, like this person's reaching out. So it's
like right now we're having this conversation. Exactly. And it just started from like initially that recognition in the street, and then grab some juice and talk, and it just develops, and you have no idea what it'll develop into. One thing, if you don't mind me asking, one thing I'm curious about with you, I've seen your stuff, like was there anything that really motivated you to like start helping people in the capacity that you did? Was there a I know you've probably talked about it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, bro. So I went to college at the University of Alabama, and it was wild. Roll Tide, babe, Roll Tide. I love that school, man. I have zero regrets. But that place fucking absolutely, it was like a train on me.
You were probably there during the national championships.
I was there.
Winning some...
They made it to the Natty 4 years in a row, bro. My freshman year to my senior year, 2015 to 2019.
Yeah.
It was an unreal experience, bro. But it also, like I said, was like a train hit me. And I was in a fucking shitty place after, bro. I was just like anxious, depressed. I was fat, bro. I was literally like 50 pounds heavier than I was when I left. I was just not in a good place, bro. I was like on antidepressants, just like borderline suicidal, not in a good spot. And I had to dig myself out. And so I started by... I was introduced to... Are you familiar with Stoicism?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stoicism. So I was introduced to the book...
Seneca, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, exactly. So I read the book The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, which kind of is essentially Ryan Holiday...
Distillation.
Exactly, of this philosophy. But then I started reading the books Meditations and the Letters of Seneca and the Enchiridion, all this stuff, philosophy books. I fell in fucking love with it, man. It was the first thing that had alleviated this brutal anxiety that I developed in college. I became obsessed with reading, started like journaling, and then this is like throughout a year or two process that I kept adding things on, but just became obsessed with just developing myself and improving myself, bro. Digging myself out of this hole. So just one by one, the reading, the journaling, meditating, taking care of like my nutrition, my fitness. And then I was actually doing sales, and for the Atlanta Falcons, I was doing ticket sales. And I got laid off because of COVID. And but again, one of these things, again, everything happens for a reason. I wasn't mad about it because I like the Falcons organization, but I was like, I don't want to be cold calling 100 people a day. So it gave me an opportunity to be like, what do you want to do? All I said was, I want to help people. I was like, that's great. It's amazing. Where do you want to start? I was like, I've been fucking lifting. Even when I was big in college, like I always made sure I got to the gym, bro. Like the gym has always been there for me. So I got my personal trainer certification, nutrition coach certification. And then just like over the years, I've been just developing myself, continuing to work on myself and habits, and with the meditating, journaling, podcasts, all this stuff, plant medicine that I definitely want to dive into soon. Lots of great journeys there. I decided that I wanted to do coaching. I moved from in-person training to online. And then again, I keep just refining and getting closer to what my sweet spot and what my niche is. And that was, I love fitness and nutrition so much, and I still coach and help people with that. But I wanted to be more all-encompassing, because for me, it took everything for me to dig myself out. It was the reading, it was the meditation, it was who I was surrounding myself with, what podcasts I was listening to, how much sleep I was getting. It was a culmination of all these things. And so I realized that like, those are amazing places to start, fitness and nutrition, but I also know all these other aspects are so valuable and important, and I want to help other people to, like, literally, if they're even, I hope they're not even fucking close to the place I was at. I hope they're not even close to rock bottom, but even, I still think that so many people now are living in a very comfortable, like, complacent place. Like, they're floating here. Life is not fucking great, but they're not at rock bottom yet either, like I was. So they're kind of just complacent and unhappy and just going through the motions. And so I think even those people too can just fucking benefit so much from including all these habits and just getting to know themselves better, work on themselves, find and create a vision. And that's what I'm really trying to do, man, is just help men, essentially like who I was, like help that type of person in that situation just absolutely not fucking survive, but thrive. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm trying to do, man. I've been in this process of coaching now for a couple years, but I just feel like my niche and my sweet spot is speaking. So whether that's on the podcast, whether that is creating videos, whether that is like doing some type of in-person retreats or something, I just feel very confident and comfortable speaking with people. And I think one day I'd like to do public speaking type stuff. Yeah. But all aimed at just trying to fucking uplift men and give them their power back, brother, and just, again, help them thrive, become the best version of themselves. Yeah. Yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but it's tough to fucking summarize that super quickly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's amazing.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, that's cool. What is the typical process that you go through with, I know this is, again, like a big question, but yeah. Like when you get someone, is it like you dig into their pain, you figure out what their goals are, you think like your job is to hold them accountable?
Yeah, dude, it's a great question. First, bro, I love to start with the fitness and nutrition aspects because I genuinely believe so many things can be just fixed there with how often are you moving, what are you putting into your body? Like these things are so fucking important for just even how our mind is on a daily basis. So I like to start there with the health aspects. Then slowly through a process, we go through, all right, are you sleeping? How much are you sleeping? Like how much water are you drinking? Like these type of stuff to get the body on the right page. And then slowly but surely, we kind of go into the, okay, what the fuck do you want in your life? What is, a lot of people don't understand what a vision is, but so it's just, what do you want in your life? Who's the type of person you want to be? So many people don't even sit with these questions for 30 minutes, and they're the most important questions we could ever ask ourselves in our lives. People will binge watch Netflix, no problem, but the questions of what am I even doing here literally do not get addressed. So a lot of times we get them super, super clear on what they want. We take care of their bodies so that they now they've decided their vision, what they want. We've taken care of their body and working on it. So now they have the energy and the juice to fucking go after that.
Yeah, because that's cool. You start with like fitness and nutrition and stuff like that. Because I remember when I, first started getting like really into jiu-jitsu, it was the first time I had really done a sport, like especially to that capacity where I was just training like every single day, twice, sometimes 3 times a day, doing competitions and being very like taxing on the body. But I remember just how much of a relief I felt mentally, and I remember just thinking, wow, yeah, a lot of people like they can get like a knot tied in their brain where they're trying to figure out life, and it becomes a super complicated project. If you just work out and get good sleep and eat the right stuff, like that does 90% of the work
For sure.
and then that frees up your energy to then take care of the deeper, more complicated questions.
100%, man. So many people are so foggy and unclear, and yes, they haven't done like the deep work and the asking themselves these questions, but it's also because they're eating trash food, junk food all the time, which I don't know about you, but if you ever eat fucking like too much goddamn sugar or just like a fucking box of pizza, next day like you just feel like shit, bro. You feel slow, groggy, foggy. Yeah. People smoking bud all the time, drinking all the time, and I'm not here to say I drink, I smoke pot on occasion, not super often, but I'm saying these things as tools or in moderation is one thing, but all the time, literally not having an opportunity to think clearly with the sobriety. People are foggy, man. And also just with so much noise from society, from their parents, from their friends, what people think that they should be doing, and they're just going through the motions. They're living a life that others are expecting of them and not a life that's true to themselves. And it's just that people are just fucking lost, bro. They can't even hear their own inner voice anymore.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most powerful tools and proponents, one is plant medicine, but 2 is just fucking being alone and in silence, bro. Yeah. That time when I started reading the philosophy and stoicism, bro, I moved to Boston for an internship, and so I was there by myself alone all the time. Dude, one of the most, so powerful, to finally just hear your own inner voice. And like before when I was in college, I was living with a bunch of guys, and you're just always doing what the group does. But then finally when I was by myself, I was like, yo, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And then I would start doing the shit that I wanted to do. So our environment is such a big proponent in peace as well. And one of the hacks here, like genuinely a hack to change your habits and like almost like a quick hack to change your life is to just change your environment, genuinely. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean having to fucking fly and move across the country. It can mean moving out of your home. It can mean moving to the other side of your town. But changing your environment is absolutely massive for changing your habits and developing and just starting that process of change, which is so hard for so many people.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about travels. It just every new place you go, it just opens you up to, like, what I like about Colombia is, so my name is Jake, but here they all call me Hake, so it feels like an alter ego. When I'm in America, I just feel like, I'm just Jake. When I'm in Colombia, I'm Hake. And then I go Argentina, they say Shake, so down there I'm Shake. And so it's, like you just pick up, go to a new place. No one has any idea who you are. No one knows anything about your past or whatever, and so it's like you can just
100%
for yourself. And which is why some travelers, and I've experienced too, sometimes you go back, what you were saying, you go back and then it's to people that were part of your life, obviously, and your upbringing and stuff like that, and they might remember a certain version of you, but when you're somewhere else, you feel like you're completely different.
Yeah.
And then you go back to that old place and you start feeling like you start feeling like that person back then. But yeah, that's a beautiful thing, is it's just about travel, is the ability to like consistently recreate yourself.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And again, like that time, like alone, it's almost like you're almost like remembering like who you were as well, like who you are naturally before you were going through school, elementary school, middle school, high school, when we're doing so many things to find friends and friend groups and we're trying to follow the crowd. But then it's like when you leave that and then you have that time for yourself, it's again that inner dialogue of what do I actually care about? Like, what am I passionate about? What do I love to do? And I'm curious, when you go home now, do you have...
Pause that thought. I'm going to plug this in. We'll hold that question.
Yeah, no problem. That's a good... I noticed that low battery too, Ben. Hell yeah, right on. Yeah, jump back in it. When you go home now, do you experience like a reverse culture shock? And two, do you still vibe with the same friends, or is it like difficult to maybe reintegrate with friends or people who haven't traveled the world and really can't relate at all to what like a life is here or across the world?
Yeah. So by reverse culture shock, you mean just like going back to where you were and then...
Yeah, sure, like your hometown in Florida or the U.S. in general.
Yeah, at first, going back, I would definitely get that reverse, like, holy shit, like, what's going on here? Just, can definitely take you back a little bit. As far as, that feeling like it's maybe hard to relate, I'd say a lot of the friends that I definitely had back home, a lot of them I would say is have gone on and done their own things. There's a couple friends and people that I still connect with whenever I go back. But really now it's at the point where it's mostly family. And I think a lot of travelers can have sometimes a bit of a negative mindset, in the sense that travel is great and it's beautiful, but it's also not necessarily... There's people that live their lives in a way where they just kind of settle down in one place and they find a job they really like and they raise a family and they take on responsibilities, and I think there's something very beautiful about that. And I think that travel can sometimes put people in the trap. Sometimes people that travel, I think, for very extended periods of time, like some of my older friends that I know that are kind of late 30s and their 40s that have just been nonstop traveling, really cool people, they've had amazing experiences, but at the same time, because they've never really had any real roots in any place, it almost feels like that kind of arrests their development a little bit, and they seem a little more, I don't want to say like infantile, but a little bit more, which could be a good thing because then they're in a more youthful state. But yeah, I would say, going back to your question, that definitely, it's so weird when you go back and people you went to high school with working at the gas stations in your hometown, and I've seen that, and I'm like, and I do have that thought, I'm like, shit, I'm really fucking glad I'm not still here. Like, I couldn't imagine it whatsoever, because just, I feel, one thing, I'm sure you feel like this too, is like when you travel, it almost feels like time slows down. Like especially when you're backpacking, you're having all these experiences that couple months can feel like a year, can feel a lifetime. And so I can imagine, just if you lived your whole life in one place, I think they have shorter lives, because I think when you're in new experiences and new places, your brain has to kick into overdrive to make sense of everything around you, and I think you develop more memories. Whereas if every day's the same, I think you literally have a shorter life, because there's just less things to remember, and I think at the end of the day, your life is your memories.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think one of the best parts like about the traveling is like, since it is so novel, it brings us to the present moment so much more so, as opposed to when we are at home or whatever, going through the motions, like living on autopilot in a sense. And yes, of course, you can be in the moment. You can be a janitor and live in the moment extremely like presently. Yeah. But it's again hack type deal that you just feel super super present all the time, especially when you are in new scenarios, new circumstances, new conditions. Yo, before I was saying like all the different tools that have helped me a lot, and one of them I just said real briefly was the plant medicine. I'm transitioning this completely. But my second or third episode here, like on this pod, was about my experiences with ayahuasca. And I told you yesterday, so I was a volunteer at a retreat center, ayahuasca retreat center in Ecuador called Gaia Sagrada for 2 months. So I had the opportunity to actually help out 3 different retreats and help out during ceremonies. I had the pleasure of sitting with the medicine 4 times myself, one in a Temazcal with a combination of San Pedro and ayahuasca. And these experiences are absolutely life-changing, man. I still connect with people today from that was over maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Still connecting with people all the time now, man. It attracted such great people there who were trying to learn about themselves, improve themselves from all different walks of life, like artists and hippies, but lawyers and doctors too, like everything in between. And I just have found, like in my life and experiences between like mushrooms and ayahuasca as well, just so much, I've found so much clarity, man, and have just felt like, wow, like this all makes sense. How was I overcomplicating this? It lets me know exactly what the fuck I need to change and work on. And there's just been so many experiences that I still feel very vividly right now.
Yeah.
And I can call back like on a dime because of how clear and potent and powerful, incredible it was.
Yeah.
And I know, on your YouTube channel, I saw some of the videos of you at different retreat centers and sitting with the medicine. So I just to know real quick, like how you got interested going down that path, and I don't know, any profound experiences or insights. I'm sure there's so many, but anything that kind of sticks to your mind that you've gained from those.
Yeah, I've done it quite a bit. I would say I've probably done it over a dozen times now in total. I would say I first got into it. I remember I was here in Colombia. I remember it was at the tail end of the pandemic, and I remember there was just this period where I was like, I had gotten sick, and I was very sick, and I just got like a bit of a slump, just like eating unhealthy, couldn't leave the house, just overall was just not feeling good whatsoever. And so a few weeks later, I was just thinking, I had a friend who was like, oh yeah, you're going down. He was like joking, because I've experimented with mushrooms like in college and stuff like that, and a friend was joking, oh yeah, you're going down there to do ayahuasca, and it wasn't even a thought until he mentioned that, and so I was like, I wonder if you could. And so I looked up, and I found this place that was apparently near Medellin, but it was like super sketchy. I couldn't find a whole lot of reviews on this place, and it just led me to a WhatsApp number. And so I started messaging this guy, and he told me how much it was. And I was like, okay, and just started going through the process. And I was just like in so much like pain at the time where I was like, yeah, I want to do this. But I was taking a big leap of faith, because aside from this WhatsApp number, I didn't have anything. He's like, yeah, go to the San Diego Mall and we'll pick you up. And I was like, we'll take you up to the mountain. I'm like,
oh God.
I'm like, all right. And so I was like, I'm not going to get killed. Like, I get butchered by some narcos in Colombia. But yeah, took the leap of faith, and it worked out. They were great guys. Apparently, they could do a little bit of marketing. It works sufficiently. And I went up there, and I had my first experience. I thought, wow, that was the most profound experience I ever had. And then drank the next night, and it was like a million times stronger. Literally, the first night, I remember just thinking, having a super clear message that, you just no matter what happens, just come back to your breath. Come back to breath, come back to breath, come back to breath. And that's a really consistent message that I've had in most of pretty much all my trips. And I just remember thinking the first night, like, oh, how clear that was. And I remember the other dudes, I was just like, yeah, that's so clear. I can't imagine there being anything else. And they're just like, oh, yeah, just wait. wait for it, bro. And so I went for it the second night, and it was completely overpowering. Maybe probably even more so than I was ready for at the time. Plant medicine is a beautiful thing, but there's a lot of things that you have to take a lot of precautions with, because you're playing with fire. And so it was probably a little bit too much at the time, but definitely was very eye-opening, where it just started. I went for the first cup, and then I went for the second cup, and then immediately I really started kicking in, and it was just this feeling of bliss just started just elevating. And but before the bliss kicked in, I remember I was laying down. It was right after I took the second cup that second night. Part of me was still a little bit like culture shocked or shell shocked. I'm like, yeah, I'm like up in the mountains in this fucking like cabin in the woods. Or it was like a Maloka, but it was like it was in this dude's like backyard. So I was like, I'm like laying on the floor in the mountains in the middle. Like, where the fuck am I? After I take that second cup, I'm like, man, maybe I like shouldn't have done that. So I'm starting to like not feel so good. And then someone comes over to me and they're like, Jake, and they like start speaking to me in Spanish. And at the time, I really didn't have any Spanish. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, I'm just gonna lay back down. And so they had someone else come over, the guy who spoke English, and he's like, Jake, come with me. And I'm just like, dude, I don't want to go anywhere, man. I just really want to leave. You know, he's like, you just come with me. I'm like, man, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? He's like, and he like leans in, he's like, for the healing.
Oh, okay.
Like, for the healing. And I'm like, at my head, I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, the healing? What the fuck? I'm like, all right, let's fucking get up and see what the healing is. And so I get up and I start to walk with him, and he sits me down in this chair, and they're just like, Jake, like, take off your clothes. Take off, not your clothes, but take off your shirt. And I'm just like, okay. And it's cold. It's like up in the mountains there. So I'm like, this is just getting progressively more ridiculous. I'm like shivering there, and I'm just like, all right, what's gonna happen? And they start taking these leaves, and it has water on it or something, these palm kind of things. I don't know what it was like in yours, but then they start playing some music and start hitting me with it. I'm like, fucking shit, this is like fucking cold. And they do this for a long time, and I'm just like, and just trying to get my mind into the right state. I'm still teetering on, is this gonna be a good trip or is this gonna be a bad trip?
Yeah.
And then like after they do that, they're like, Jay, like, you don't have any allergies, right? And I'm just like, now you're asking. And then they moved me over to another side of the room. And keep in mind, like, there were other people there, but I guess like I was like the visitor in town that day. So I was the only one they had doing this. And so it almost felt like I was like the center of attention. And then they start hitting me with these plants that have this like spiky, I forget what it's called, like these, like, it's like almost like poison ivy or something like that. It hits you and it's really painful, especially the trip amplifies it, so you almost feel it in your bones, like it. And so they start hitting me with this, and it was like agonizing. And but it started becoming that pain, and the combined with the trip coming in, the pain started becoming like this like metaphor for all the pain in your life, being expressed and almost distilled out. And then it was just like a game of, can I stay still as he's doing this, and start developing that kind of that stoicism in the face of that pain. Yeah. But still there's this part of me in the back of my mind that's thinking, Jesus, if my friends could see me right now, like how crazy this looks. And then they finish up with that, and then I go and I lay down, and they rub like this lotion after, which actually ended up like, I don't know, put you really in touch with your body, where you can feel like every single like cell in your skin almost. As crazy as that sounds, but then once I go and I lay down, that's when it really like starts kicking in. And then like identity fades away, Jake fades away. Like I felt like I was literally, I thought like I had gone to heaven. Like it was just a bliss, just accelerating, and I'm like, oh, this is like probably what happens like when you die. And so that, after that experience, just blew the door wide open. I was a little bit like taken aback by that for a while afterwards, and it's important to, like I said, be in the right place, the right people, because these were great guys. But after that experience, all right, Jake, it was good to meet you, and they just dropped me off downtown in Medellin, and I'm just like, holy shit, what just happened? And since then, I had experimented more, and for me, it has given me a lot. I went down to Putumayo, the jungle, where it's the homeland of it, and I've had a lot of experiences, some good experiences, terrible experiences. For me, it's reconnected me with my relationship with Christ, and I think that is, just through various visions, something that has been very beautiful, and something that gives me a strength that I wouldn't exchange for anything. Yeah, I've had a lot of really crazy and wild experiences with the ayahuasca. They're almost more intense than anything you can encounter while traveling. But yeah, so that's rough. That's how I got into it.
For anyone that's like listening that has just been like curious about it, thinking about it, has heard about it, would you suggest it for everyone? Who would you suggest it for? And what do you think is the best, I don't know, maybe reason to utilize it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that a lot of times, I think that it's definitely not necessarily for everyone. I think it's really important that you go to the right place, that you're around the right people, because I've drinking with different shamans, and there's a different energy with each shaman that you drink with. You're going to get, even here in Colombia, there's kind of two main tribes, family trees. There's like Upper Putumayo and Lower Putumayo. Sibundoy is Upper Putumayo. And the Lower Putumayo tribes, they have more of a warlike history, and so they say in that experience, in their ayahuasca, it's more harsh. Whereas the Sibundoy, the more mountain type people, when you drink with them, it's a little more like a loving, gentle experience in ayahuasca, which I've actually had experiences with both, and I've seen that to be true.
Okay.
And I think where you're drinking it is super important. I think that for a lot of people, it's a question people will feel called to it. I do believe that's true to a good extent. I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of Westerners will make when going and drinking ayahuasca is like we're talking about fitness and nutrition. And I think it's really important to be healthy as much as you can before ayahuasca. But also, I think there's a real neuroticism in our culture where it's like, oh, do I eat this? Do I eat that? I shouldn't eat avocados, or I shouldn't eat whatever, or red meat. I eat red meat almost all the time before my ayahuasca ceremonies. You know? And so I think that people get very neurotic about what is the right thing to do leading up to it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that can get people in a position where then they have a bad trip because they're like, oh, I'm going to get punished for this mistake that I made.
Yeah.
And really, it's just do everything you can to prepare, but eventually let go. I remember the worst experience I ever had where I had literally felt like I had sunk to the depths of hell, reached like utter rock bottom. Before that one, I was like eating really clean, really healthy. And there was this other guy who was visiting from Texas. He was like half Colombian, half Texan, and this big old fat guy. And he had this big, just like this jolly attitude. And before the trip, we were talking about, with some of the other guys, we were talking about our diet and what we ate. He's like, yeah, last night I had some pizza. And he's like, yeah, but they said no pork. So I told him no pork. And I was like, all right, cool. It's like, yeah, it's fucking pizza. And like, then later on in the night, I was fucking losing my mind. And then I come and eventually meet up with him later. And I'm like, hey, man, like, how was it for you? He's like, man, I've been in the casino for the past 3 hours, bro. It's been awesome. Like,
what? Are you for real?
He just had this blissful, fucking amazing experience. He's, yeah, bro. Like, I never forget. He just like, yeah, bro. I've been in the casino, bro. That's some cool shit.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, man. They said no pork. And I was like, all right, fuck. And
totally different experience
totally
for every
different.
person.
And so yeah, that's huge. So I just remember that guy, and I just remember thinking like, okay, your mindset is the most important thing going into it. Like, that guy, maybe after the experience, man, I can go for a beer. He just fucking cruised through it. He just was just sailing through it. And so I think a lot of times a big thing is like the mindset that you have going into it. If you have a super neurotic mindset, that's okay, because a lot of times that's why you're going there in the first place. But it's important to just, once you drink, you just...
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. And I think obviously I totally believe in the spirit side of it and the spiritual side of the medicine, but it's also science to a degree as well, right? Obviously there's the DMT in the ayahuasca that you're drinking, and at some point it's like no matter what you eat, the DMT is released into your body. Like you're gonna have an experience most likely. So yeah, there's that aspect as well, because I know with the eating and drinking, it was a night that it was a ceremony and I was volunteering that day. Like I'm volunteering every day, but I wasn't supposed to do the ceremony that day. And I ate a lot that day. Like when I was like volunteering, I think I ate 3 meals and had 3 or 4 cups of coffee. And my manager there at the retreat center was like, hey, like we got an open spot in ceremony in 20 minutes. Like, you want to go? And at first I was like, I don't think that's a good idea, Wendy. Like I had 4 cups of coffee, had 3 big meals. And then 20 minutes later, I was like, why the fuck did I come all the way here if I'm not going to take advantage of this opportunity? And then I got my ass into ceremony, and it was one of the best nights of my life. And again, that was not on protocol to have 4 cups of coffee and eating full stomach. Like, terrible. Supposedly terrible for it, but ended up being a great experience for myself. So yeah, brother, I get the mindset is super, super important, and letting go and the surrender aspect, which obviously is so hard for so many people, but maybe again, that's exactly why you need it, to maybe let go of a little bit of control as well in your life. But yeah, bro, super, super powerful, man. Do you have any plans on kind of sitting with us in the future or anything?
Yeah, I think I will. Maybe hit the dude up tonight and see if there's anything.
Yeah, bro. I don't know. For real.
It's always just like falls into your lap sometimes. You know? Right now, there's not anything. I think I'm gonna make a trip to Argentina here soon, and to my knowledge, there's not really a huge scene down there for ayahuasca. Might go without it for a little bit, but I think I'm gonna try to organize some ceremonies later this year, and just try to have a group. Because once you know a few people in the Colombia, like ayahuasca scene, you know everyone.
Sure.
I know some really great musicians, some really great taitas, some really great just people all around. Probably will continue with it later on in the year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
God willing, we'll see what happens.